Mmm, fresh homemade bread. Have you ever wanted to learn how to make fresh homemade bread, but you didn't know how? Well, if you stay tuned to this video, I'm going to show you. We're going to get started. So, the very first thing that you want to do, I'm actually going to move this bowl, is you want to get some water, and you want your water to be warm. You want your water to be like almost too hot to touch from the tap. You can use a thermometer if you want. You want it to be around 110 degrees, no more than 115. And some of the first things we're going to add, now this is my yeast, and I keep this in the fridge, and I keep all of my backup in the freezer. Do not keep this in your cupboard. It will go bad. What we're doing right now is called proofing or proving. We're making sure that our yeast is still active and alive. And I actually haven't made bread in a while, so I'm really hoping that this yeast is still good. But when I do recall recently taking it out of the freezer, so fingers crossed. And the first thing you want to add to your water is going to be sugar, though. So we are adding 1 tablespoon of sugar. This is just an organic cane sugar that I always use. I get it from Costco, and for some reason the last time I got it, all the bags have like lumps in them. It's really, really frustrating. Anyways, I wish I had an overhead so you could see all of this. I do not. Someday I probably will, but for now, we do what we can do. So we're also, for some reason, going to fight with that. There we go. So we've got our salt. I should probably have a, don't want to, okay. And we're going to give us, what you want to do is not our salt. Did I say salt? Sugar. We have our sugar. And what you want to do is dissolve the sugar in the water. And the sugar is just giving the yeast a little something to eat while it's proving itself to us. And then 2 tablespoons of yeast. And I just sprinkle it over the top. And I mean, it's really cold in my house right now. It's really cold in my kitchen, especially. So I'm not like super concerned about putting this back in the fridge, but I am going to put it back in the fridge right now. As I cook, I tried to put everything back where I got it from, so that when I'm finished, I don't have to clean, like I don't have a whole bunch of stuff I have to put away. Okay, so now this we're going to give a stir, just to make all of the yeast wet. Some of it's got air trapped all around it. Doesn't really matter. It's all eventually going to incorporate and do what it's supposed to do. And I'm not like worried about being gentle with it. Some people say to, but I mean, I've made a ton of bread. This is always how I do it. So now this we're going to set off to the side. And it's time for our flour. I have this massive bowl. So this is a big recipe that I'm making. This makes 4 loaves of bread. I recommend making 4 loaves of bread at a time. So the next ingredients are, I'm going to do the white flour, and that's 6 cups of white flour. And actually, you know what? I'm going to leave 1 of those cups out for right now, because sometimes you need more or less. So I personally am just going to leave one of the white out. So I'm only going to do 5, and I'm going to do 4 spelt. And I'm going to take 1 cup extra. And I'm going to leave that off to the side because I'll probably need it, but I might not need it. But I am going to need the bread. That was a joke. You know, they always have all those dad jokes. Yeah, that was a mom joke. We're allowed to have jokes too. A tablespoon of salt. That might seem like a lot of salt to you. It helps with the flavor of the bread. That's all I'm going to say. Okay? So the salt goes in. And an additional 1/2 cup of sugar, which I'm actually going to sift only because the sugar that I got from Costco has lumps all in it. I'm so mad. But what can you do, you know? I'm just going to use my hand to push that through and make sure that there's... See, look at the lumps. Whole lumps. Like 4 bags of sugar like that. Oh well. Not much that I can do about it, except complain. Okay. And it's easy enough to do that. As you can see, I'm putting everything away as I'm going. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out some avocado oil. 1/2 cup of avocado oil. You can use whatever oil you prefer. I prefer avocado oil. That almost takes care of my avocado oil. I have backup. I always have backup. Boy, I like to fill things full. Okay, that's really full. We're going to whisk all of those ingredients together. Now, usually to this recipe, I would add 1/2 cup of ground flax meal, which I grind myself. I'm out of flax right now, though. So I really like to incorporate that into this bread because it really helps aid in your digestion when you're eating it. And this particular bread, like plain old white bread, especially homemade, like that I make, hurts my stomach so bad. I mean, I don't think that I have a gluten intolerance, but maybe I do. Anyways, when I add the sprouted spelt and when I add the flax, I don't have that problem. So I wish I had some flax. I have like a teeny tiny bit. Not enough. Not enough to make it worthwhile, so I'm not even going to bother. So I'm just mixing this fairly well. And then we're going to get rid of the whisk because we don't want to whisk because it'll get all stuck in our whisk. And do remember that you have a whole cup left over. We're going to give that another minute or so. I'm also going to remove my rings. So actually, you know what? I'm not even going to give this any extra time. I'm just going to let it, I'm just going to do it. So you just pour that in. That's your yeast mixture. And the oil. Half a cup of oil, 4 cups of water. And I'm just gonna really lightly stir this or mix this. Okay, I am not gonna mix this all the way. I'm pretty sure this is what they call making a sponge, because I know all the terminology and stuff. I don't, actually, that's a lie. I'm just thinking that that's what they call it. Okay, so now I've just, like, it's still got lots of stuff not mixed in, and I'm going to leave that in there. And I'm just going to take a cloth, and I'm going to put it over top, just like that. And I'm going to put it on my stove, because it's warm there. ish, and then I'm just going to leave it for 10 minutes. And it just kind of loosens the gluten up that you've already gotten kind of like tight together in there, and makes that final mixing and bringing it all together easier. You don't have to do this step. I find that it makes it easier. So, okay, so it's been 10 minutes, and you can see now how this has changed. You will see when you make it that it's changed, and it's nice and soft, and it's ready. It is ready. And I'm going to start mixing this about, getting the rest of it all mixed in, because it's not all mixed in yet. To get this out of the bowl, I have one of these mats, which I got from Home Hardware, which is one of our like home improvement type stores here. And I love this mat. So it's a pie mat for making pies on, but I mostly use it for bread making. So I just use my bench scraper. It's not a bench scraper, sorry. This is a different scraper. I'm not sure what you call it. I'm going to put that off to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to chop it in half. I'm just going to eyeball it. It doesn't matter because it's all going back together in the end. And I'm going to put half of it. Now usually I do this, I do half and then I do the other half, because I can only do half a batch in my stand mixer. We'll see how well this thing likes this stand mixer on it. And I'm going to turn this on to about, I don't know, 5. And that's going to mix, 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 mix. And I'm going to keep my eye on it. So continue to add flour to the bowl until the dough stops sticking to the side. But remember not to add too much flour. I'm going to knead this by hand. So it's really easy. You're pushing with the palm, the heel of your hand away from you and pulling back. And we're going to do this to make it easy for you. You'll do this to the count of 100, and that should be done. So start count. 3, 4. It's a bit of a workout. The more you knead it, the less sticky it will become. So you don't necessarily have to keep adding more flour. Okay, so we're pretty well done. I've done about 100 rounds here, and I did end up adding even more flour, probably about less than 1/4 of a cup. It'll depend on the humidity in your house and like the time of year and all that for how much flour you're going to need. So you're just going to go by feel, which will take a while for you to learn. If you really, really want to learn how to make bread, you have to fail. I hope that's not discouraging. Bread is a lot of learning and learning how to feel what the dough feels like. It's the same with making pasta or pastry or anything like that. It really takes you just doing it to figure out what it should feel like, what it should look like. People can tell you, but you will know, you'll learn more by trying than somebody telling you. That's the way I feel. So just start doing it. Just start doing it if you want to. So you can see, I don't know if you can actually tell the difference between these two doughs. This one is definitely smoother than the one that I did by hand. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, but I do find that the one that I do in my stand mixer will be a nicer loaf of bread. Personally, that's the way I feel. But I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to mix them together because they're going to proof now in a bowl together. And you can see how I'm easily handling this dough. It's a lot of dough, and it's not sticking to me. It should spring back nicely. When you do that, it should spring back. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to oil your bowl. I just used my same bowl that I already used. Sometimes this takes more time than it's worth. I bought this sprayer off of Amazon and I'm not really super happy with it. Anyway. I'm going to take my dough. Get oil on it. I don't know if I'm still where you can see me. Flip it. Now it's got some oil. As I do use plastic wrap, you don't have to, but I find that it gives me a better secure seal, and my bread proofs better if I use plastic. But what I do is I use this plastic for this, and then I use it again when I do my loaves, when I make this into loaves. Okay, so we've got that covered in there nicely, all covered and tucked down, and then I take a cloth. Now if your house is warm, you can just leave this somewhere warm on your stove. I have a bread proofing setting on my oven, so I have that turned on. Whew, heavy. And that will go in there and proof for 1 hour. Okay, so our timer has gone off and our bread has proofed. Oh, has it ever. So it should have risen up quite a bit. And it's going to fall back down, which is what we want it to do. We're going to encourage it to fall back down. And we're going to dump it out. And if you greased your pan well enough, it should just come right out just like that. And we want to get all the air out of it. And you will notice that I have my scale here. So when I make my loaves of bread, they are 700 grams each, or as close to 700 grams as I can get. So I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces. Don't worry about being gentle with this. Bread is not pastry. You do not have to be gentle with your bread dough. Okay, then I just take each piece and I go, okay, 620. So we now have 4 balls of dough. We're done with that. And I've got my pans here. And I'm going to oil them. And yes, you want to oil your pans. If you don't oil your pans, you will hate yourself, unless you're using a silicone pan, I suppose. I try and make sure I get it up here on this lip too, because that's where I find my bread sticks a little. I also try to make sure, well, I don't try, I now do not put these pans in the dishwasher, ever, because it makes it so that it just won't release your bread. You want to season these pans like you would a cast iron pan. I know that these are just like an aluminum with a coating on it, but it's the same sort of idea. If they're nicely seasoned, then you don't have to worry as much about them sticking. We're going to put flour in them. Is this an important step? Yes, it is. So the way that I do it, so I put it in a generous amount, move it around the bottom, and then I generally take another one. So I move it around the pan by hitting like this. I don't know if you'll be able to see what I'm doing. And covering it all the way as I go around. There. And making sure it's everywhere. And then I give it a good tap. That's the only one I'm going to show you like that. Tap to get any of the loose stuff out. There. And on to the next one. Now, I don't know if you can see super well what I'm doing here. I'm going to try and show you how I shape these the best I can. Okay, so I try to, so you want to squish all of the air out, right? And I try and make like, kind of like a triangular shape. And then you fold one side in. Oh, wait. I'm going to do this the other way around. Make sure that if you've got any spots like this, you want that to all end up on the inside of your dough. And we've lost our triangle. Doesn't matter. So I fold one side in, the other side in. So now you've got your triangle, okay? And then you've got this part here, and I take it and I roll it over and I push it down with my thumbs. Roll it, push it down, roll it, push it down, roll it, push it down, without pushing this off the edge. And then I pinch all of my ends and my seams like this. Make sure that they're all stuck. And that's my loaf, like that. And that's one. I'll do it again. I really wish you could see this from my perspective, but unfortunately I do not have the time or the camera. I need to get some smaller camera gear. So once again, fold it, flip it, fold it, fold it, triangle. It's kind of looks like a, like if you wrapped a blanket around yourself. And push it away, push it away. When you're pushing it, you're sealing kind of like a seam when you're pushing it. And then tuck the ends. And pinch all of your seams up really well. You really want to make sure that your seams are closed up. It's important, or your bread won't, it just won't look as nice. It's all for looks. It'll still be bread. I also try and make sure that any, like if there's air pockets, I kind of pop those because those can become like really big and out of control. There's number two. out of the way as we no longer need it. And this next step is also very important. And this is actually the reason why I purchased this in the first place. But it doesn't work the way I want it to. I wanted it to spray. It doesn't really spray like it's supposed to. So you really want to make sure that you coat these with oil. Because if you do not coat these with oil really well, when you put your plastic on top, it's going to stick. Totally. Totally going to stick like crazy. You will be so sorry that you did not put oil on top of your pan like this. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I'm going to use a cloth, it'll stick to the cloth too. So 100% use oil. Very important. Okay, now, as I said, I really don't like wasting things. So I'm going to use these, or this plastic that I already used, to cover these. And I do recommend using plastic because if you just use a tea towel, I find it doesn't keep the air out as well, and they don't turn out as good. I mean, this is, you don't have to use plastic if you don't like plastic wrap. I totally understand. Hello? Huh? Okay, I'm making a video, so be quiet, please. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then these go back into your oven or wherever you're going to keep them warm for another, between a half an hour and an hour, depending on how long it takes for them to rise. Do not overproof your bread. I'll show you when they're ready. For me, it'll probably be about half an hour because I'm putting them in my oven to proof. And I will put them loud. Okay, you can't see my oven, but you don't want to see my oven. It's very messy. You also want to cover with a cloth as well. So plastic and a cloth. Okay, timer for half an hour. And then we'll check. And if it's not quite risen enough, then we'll do another 15 minutes. Okay guys, so ignore my really, really dirty oven. I use it all the time. This is what your bread should look like. This is after 45 minutes of proofing in the oven. So at this point, we're going to take them out of the oven, take all the stuff off, heat the oven up, and let them proof a little bit more on the counter. So then you're just going to cover them with a cloth and let them sit here and continue to proof until your oven has heated up to 350 degrees. Okay, so you can go ahead and take your bread out of the oven once your 25 minutes is up. And as long as it's nice and golden brown on the top, it should be ready. Okay, so now you're going to flip your pan over and hope that your bread pops out, just like that. And then do that with all 4 of your other loaves. So I forgot to mention that a way for you to be able to tell if your bread is done is when you take it out. I don't know if you can hear how hollow that sounds. That means it's done. So, as I said, this is the next day. You can see how I'll eat that piece. And I'll cut another piece. We'll have a sandwich later or something. It's really easy to cut. And this is like probably the crappiest bread knife anybody could own. So you saw how easily I cut that. Give you a look at it. Nice and it's not crumbly, doesn't fall apart. Okay, put you there. And of course, I'm gonna eat some. I already had some. That's okay, because I guess 2 pieces of bread is gonna be my breakfast this morning. I would prefer a piece of bread and an egg, and the bread is toasted, but you know, I wish my butter wasn't so hard. But here on the homestead, we heat with wood, and I'm sure that anybody else who heats with wood knows exactly how it feels to have hard butter. It's just part of life. Yep. It tastes really good. I really like this bread because it has a really round flavor. So I took my bread, and this is what I put them in. These are freezer bags. I get them from our local dollar store. They work. So thank you very much for joining me to make bread. I hope that I have encouraged you to make bread if you've always wanted to, but never have. It's really easy. It's really fun. If you have any questions, or if you try to do this and you don't succeed like you wanted to, leave me comments in the bottom of this video and I'll totally answer you and try and troubleshoot what's going on. That's how I learned how to make bread. Troubleshooting. You can follow a million videos and people can tell you exactly what to do, but you are not going to actually learn how to do it and be successful unless you actually do it. And if you don't succeed, you don't give up. You do it again and again, and you figure out whatever it was that was wrong, and eventually you will make beautiful loaves of bread, or maybe you'll make beautiful loaves of bread the very first time around. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me here. I hope that I've helped encourage you to make some bread. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. That really helps our channel, and subscribe to us and hit the notification bell if you want to see when we upload new videos. And yeah, leave a comment down below what you thought about the video, because this is one of my first videos. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me on Sun Twist Acres. I'm Megan. See you later.